Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live Show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you to all the real ones that are tuning in at the beginning of today's live program. It is Tomlin Tuesday, so we got some big injury updates for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they prepare to take on the Miami Dolphins in their maybe final primetime game this year on Monday Night Football. It's going to be a very interesting week for the Pittsburgh Steelers, very interesting matchup that I can't wait to talk about on today's show. That'll be our second segment today, our Week 15 preview for Monday Night Football. But first, we've got Tomlin Tuesday news and rumors to talk about on today's show. We got some injury updates. We got a reasoning for why Roman Wilson was benched and didn't get a helmet, and he was a healthy scratch last week against the Baltimore Ravens, whereas a guy like Scotty Miller got a helmet. We got an explanation from Mike Tomlin on that today, as well as some other news and rumors surrounding Mike Tomlin's job security after that big win versus the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. Lots to talk about here on the show, but if you guys want to get on the show today, if there's a topic that you guys want me and Ponzi, our producer here, to discuss, you guys can send in a Super Chat, Venmo, or PayPal of any dollar amount that you want, and we will make sure to talk about whatever Steelers topic you want to talk about. If you want to talk about Mike Tomlin, if you want to talk about the Steelers' playoff chances, if you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Derrick Harmon, the run defense, whatever topic you want to talk about, if you have a question on it, make sure you guys get those Super Chats in. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. And with that, I want to see who the real ones are. Down there in the comment section, I see we already have a few Super Chats rolling in here. We'll get to here in a second, but type those me's. If you've already liked today's stream, we got over 220 people already watching live. Only 33 people have clicked that thumbs up icon, though. Let's get that to at least 50 before we get into our first segment today. We got Marksy, we've got Czar Craig, we got Bryson, we got Parker, we got Jaden, we got Gamer Plush, we got Jaden, we got Joe, we got Maxie. We've got Unreal. We got Eugene Payne, Jaden. We've got my lovely fiance, Cassie Voth. She's here today. Everyone say hi to Cassie for me. We got Princeton Cummings in the chat. What's up, Princeton? We got Misfit. We've got, they're coming in fast here, guys. We got OG Rob. Got Kevin Reed. We've got Diggs. We've got the Phantom Jackson. We got Glenn. Damian Maturo. Got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some ball here. Already got a number of Super Chats. Let's just dive right into some of these Super Chats before we get into our first segment today. Starting with Misfit Trail Riders, who says, Grandpa Rivers is back. And I knew we were going to get something about this earlier today. It was actually really funny, Ponzi, because during Mike Tomlin's press conference today, he was asked about it, and I think it was Jerry Dulac who asked him, how do you feel about a 44-year-old quarterback signing with the team? And he was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Phillip Rivers is signing with the Colts, and he was like shocked because he had no idea.
Really see the reaction. It's really funny.
And by the way, that just goes to show you how locked in Mike Tomlin is and how much he's tuning out the noise during football season, is that he's not even hearing the big news here that Phillip Rivers, 44-year-old grandpa of a quarterback, literally a grandpa, is coming back here after a 5-year hiatus to play for the Indianapolis Colts after the Colts have now lost all three of their quarterback options. Daniel Jones is out for the season with an Achilles injury. Anthony Richardson is still dealing with that orbital injury. And then Riley Leonard, their third-string quarterback, has an injury this week as well. So they're bringing in Rivers to be the starting quarterback, presumably this week. And he did play under Shane Steichen, and Steichen was the Chargers quarterbacks coach in his time there in San Diego. And Rivers obviously hasn't played in a long time. He hasn't played since the COVID season is how long it's been. So it's going to be an adventure, Ponzi. I can't wait to see what it looks like on Sunday, though.
I looked at the video that was surfacing about his last playoff game, which his last game was against the Bills in the wild card round in 2021, I believe. His last touchdown pass was to Jack Doyle, who retired, and he was throwing passes in that playoff game to rookie year Michael Pittman.
Yep, I mean,
and not Shane Steichen. What's his Nick Sirianni was the offensive coordinator of that team.
That's just crazy how things work, man. 2 days ago, we were waking up with thinking that there was a 0% chance Phillip Rivers would ever play in the NFL again. I mean, 5 years removed from his last game. I mean, he officially retired, I think, this offseason. But there's been some reports that he came close to returning a couple of times for the 49ers and for some other teams. But now that this opportunity has opened up for an 8-5 football team down the stretch with a good run game, good pass protection, really good play caller, good weapons, and a pretty decent defense. If Grandpa Rivers was going to come back, Old Man Rivers, I like to call him, comes back, I mean, this would be the situation to do it for. So it's going to be an interesting adventure. He's only assigned to the practice squad right now, but I'm guessing he's going to be elevated to the active roster by Sunday. And, a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers will be making an NFL start. And Aaron Rodgers is no longer the oldest starting quarterback in the National Football League. So at least there's that.
That does happen.
Yeah, exactly. If it does happen, for sure. $2 from Bernard, always getting those $2 in. Says, what do you think about that call? I think we all know what call he's talking about, the touchdown reversal with the Isaiah Likely play. Listen, man, if you don't like the way that the rule is, change the wording on the rule. All right, like that's the way that I'm going to phrase that. Like, do I think that catch should count as a touchdown? Yes, but the letter of the law doesn't allow it to be a touchdown. So I think the refs ended up getting the right call. It's just I think the rule is stupid, all right? Like, I think you should be able, if you have 2 feet down and firm possession of the ball, I think it should be a catch and it should be a touchdown. And frankly, guys, even if it was a touchdown, the reason why I don't really buy this from the media and from Ravens fans that are crying on social media is that the Steelers still had like 2.5 minutes to go down and score a field goal to take the win, all right, to take the lead again. So, like, I don't think that it was like a foregone conclusion that if that call goes the other way, that the Ravens win the ball game, all right? I really don't. So I know that the Steelers offense didn't get much going in the fourth quarter, but a lot of that was because they were running the football, and there were some penalties there. And, I really think that if it came down to a 2-minute drill to go win the game with Chris Boswell as your field goal kicker, you probably hit that field goal and you find a way to get the job done, all right?
And
so
the thing about that is that, like, the offense was in kind of cruise mode in that fourth quarter. We didn't really get to see a real efficient drive other than, the attempted one where Rodgers had to catch his own, the ball got batted up in the air and he took a loss because of it. But, like, we didn't really get to see Rodgers that much in the 2-minute, like, operation, and he's really good in those situations.
100%. And another thing too is that even though that call didn't go the Ravens' way, they still had other opportunities. I mean, they still had the ball, in the Steelers' red zone, and they had a 3rd and 2, and they had 2 straight incompletions. All right, like a 3rd and 2 should not be that difficult to convert after that play gets reversed. So did that make an impact on the game? 100%. But by the letter of the law, they did get the call correct. And then also the leverage call that gave the Steelers a touchdown as opposed to a field goal there in the first half. I mean, they missed a very clear defensive pass interference penalty like the play before that. So, like, for me, that was kind of like offsetting penalties there where the Steelers should have had the ball 1st down and 10 from the 1-yard line anyway. So, I don't think that the refereeing necessarily, determined the outcome of the game necessarily. I think the Steelers certainly got calls to go their way. But at the end of the day, the Ravens had their opportunities to win the game, and they didn't take those opportunities. So I think the Steelers, I don't think that this game is tainted or anything like that. I think the Steelers were the better team on the field on Sunday. $5 from Alex L. says, I sent you an email. Did you get it? Yes, Alex. I still have to catch up on my emails. I did get your email, though. I'm going to figure out your jersey situation by the end of the week, all right? So I appreciate you, Alex. Thank you for your support. I know you've been patient to get your jersey. $2 there from Bernard. Says, ESPN sucks. They hate A-Rod and the Steelers. Well, that's okay. I actually like it when people doubt this football team, okay? Like, I feel like this team sucks when expectations start getting put on them a little bit, So if Dan Orlovsky and if Rex Ryan and all these guys want to hate on the Pittsburgh Steelers and say that they didn't deserve to win against the Ravens yesterday, and we all know how much they slurp Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh and the Ravens, all right? They're just upset that their team lost, all right? So, they're pretty much ipso facto Ravens fans, and that's okay. We got the victory. We're now in the driver's seat in the AFC North, and they can cry about it all they want, Bernard. Then another $2 here from Bernard says, A-Rod is not the oldest player in the NFL anymore. No, he is not. It's crazy that we're taking that leap from 42 being the oldest quarterback in the league to now it being 44. All right, that's a pretty decent jump right there. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday. $2 from the only key says, was Baltimore trying to poison DK? I don't think so. I think he got punched in the stomach, and I think that was kind of what set it off. Now, maybe he ate maybe like he went out to eat the night before and they tried to do something to his food. Patrick Queen claims that he got food poisoning from a Baltimore restaurant the night before the playoff game last January. So, I mean, I guess anything's possible for those scumbags in Baltimore. But, the fact that nobody else was dealing with stomach issues probably means it was something else. But we have a bunch of stuff to get into today. Want to get into our first segment here, guys. Still got over 250 people watching. We got almost 100 likes already on the stream. We got first up here, Tomlin Tuesday news and rumors, and then we'll be getting into our in-depth preview for Monday Night Football versus the Miami Dolphins. So lots to talk about today. Not going to waste any more of your guys' time. Let's go get into it right now. The latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Today in Southside Pittsburgh, Coach Tomlin took the podium for the Pittsburgh Steelers here on Tomlin Tuesday, gave some injury updates, gave an explanation as to why Roman Wilson was benched last week for the Ravens game and more. Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of different topics here. There's been some new reporting on the job security surrounding head coach Mike Tomlin that we'll discuss at the top of today's show. Then we'll talk about the injury updates here heading into Week 15 that Tomlin gave to us at the podium earlier today. He also gave that explanation for why Roman Wilson got benched and guys like Scotty Miller retained their roster position. And then make sure you guys stay tuned to the end of today's show because the Cleveland Browns are about to make a huge mistake that is about to set their franchise back another few years when they make this mistake next offseason. Now, before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We provide you guys daily and free informative Steelers content here on the channel every single day. We have shorts, we have community posts. We've, of course, got 2 full-length videos on this channel every single day, as well as our breaking news coverage that we have during the offseason. Whenever Omar Khan makes a big signing, we make sure to get you guys breaking news coverage for free as fast as we can. We got weekly live show coverage as well. We go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well as every single Steelers game day, and it's all 100% free, guys. So if you enjoy our content here, you've been watching us for a while, and you want to join our family, there's a reason why we are the only individually run Steelers news program with over 100,000 subscribers. So help us continue to grow our family here today by clicking that subscribe button and supporting the channel. Now, we get into this report here at the top of today's show from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. This actually came out before the game on Sunday, indicating that Mike Tomlin is quote-unquote not, Mike Tomlin firing in Pittsburgh this year is quote-unquote not going to happen, especially after this last big-time win versus the Baltimore Ravens in Week 14. This is what Rappaport had to say in his most recent reporting surrounding Coach T. A Mike Tomlin firing is not going to happen. The Steelers know that Tomlin is one of the NFL's best coaches, and his relationship with Art Rooney and the organization he's coached since 2007 is such that a firing is not on the table. Last June, set to enter the final year of his contract, Tomlin signed a 3-year extension that secured the future of one of the NFL's highest-paid coaches. That deal, however, contains a team option that must be picked up by March 1st of next offseason to lock in that 2027 season. If not, Tomlin would enter the 2026 season in a contract year, which would be noteworthy given his stature. That's why it's likely the team would pick the option up, sources say. As one source said, if the Steelers win versus the Ravens in Week 14, this all goes away. So it certainly sounds like Mike Tomlin's going to be returning as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026, whether some Steelers fans like that or not. And, I think, we can look back to what Art Rooney had to say about head coach Mike Tomlin last offseason and why they've continued to keep him as long as they have. It's very clear that Art believes that Tomlin is one of the best head coaches in the National Football League. This is what he had to say about Tomlin at the league meetings back in January. When you look at how many games Mike has won in this league, you don't win that many games if you're not a good coach. And I know he's frustrated like we all are in terms of not being able to take that next next step, but we still feel good about him being the leader and still think he has the strengths that he always had in terms of being able to lead a team. The other side of the coin is when you look at the fact that we have 6, 7, 8 teams a year that turn their coaches over. When you have a good coach, you just try and keep building with them. So from Art Rooney's perspective, Mike Tomlin is one of the better head coaches in the National Football League. And from his perspective, when you have one of those really good coaches, even if you don't have exceptional seasons, you still try and build with that head coach if you still believe in him. And, I would say the devil's advocate's kind of view there is that, I think it's fair to say, it's fair to, criticize Tomlin, even if you think he's a good head coach. And I think, he's certainly a good head coach. You can't have this many non-losing seasons in a row without being a good head coach. But I think that there are legitimate questions as to whether or not he's an exceptional head coach, like an Andy Reid or Sean McVay or, one of these really, really top-end coaches in the league that consistently get their teams into Super Bowl contention. And, if Mike Tomlin's not one of those exceptional head coaches, why are we just settling for only good, right? Why are we just settling for mediocrity? Why are we just settling for 9-8, 10-7 with no playoff victories every single season? And I think Art probably doesn't have a firm grasp of Mike Tomlin's role in that mediocrity. He's not picking the right quarterbacks. He's not picking the right offensive coordinators. Mike Tomlin has a big say in some of these veterans they bring in free agency that are completely cooked, all right, that are in their 30s and they're completely done. Just look at Darius Slay this season, Patrick Peterson a couple of years ago, Allen Robinson a couple of years ago. They bring in all these older players that don't work out. Mike Tomlin has a very heavy hand in team building in that regard, and it's led to a lot of mediocrity here in Pittsburgh. But at this point, it certainly appears, based on the reporting from guys like Schefter and Rappaport, all these different guys, they all say Mike Tomlin is coming back in 2026. So at least for the time being, barring some sort of catastrophic disaster to finish the season, like losing 4 in a row and losing the division, I feel like Mike Tomlin is almost certainly going to be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. But, I think something that's possible is that if the Steelers kind of crap the bed down the stretch here and they lose out on the playoffs, then Pittsburgh may decide to decline Mike Tomlin's option for 2027 and make him a lame duck head coach heading into the 2026 campaign where he would be fighting for a new contract. And, I think the only way that Tomlin actually ends up leaving the organization heading into next offseason is if he decides to do so. If he decides, I'm done with this organization, I'm done with this fan base, I want to go somewhere where I'm appreciated or whatever the case may be, he wants a fresh start, whatever. I think that's the only way that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin are not doing business together in 2026. And personally, guys, I just don't see Coach T doing that. His family is rooted here. His wife has many businesses, with her clothing line and stuff like that in Pittsburgh. It's all rooted in this city, and I just don't see him wanting to uproot his life. And he loves it here in Pittsburgh. He absolutely loves the job that he has, and he loves the players that he gets to coach, and especially with Cam Hayward likely to have just one more season in his NFL career, I guarantee you Mike Tomlin wants to be a part of that season. So I just don't see Coach T wanting to move on. But even despite the big win versus the Baltimore Ravens, there are some Steelers fans, like former Defensive Player of the Year for this organization, big-time voice, and honestly awesome podcaster, by the way now, James Harrison, where he said earlier this week that a Super Bowl championship should be the only thing that saves Mike Tomlin's job this season. All right, this is what James had to say on his podcast this week. He says, quote, I think Mike Tomlin did a better job because he won this week. The only thing that would 100% keep him with me if I'm in the owner's hat is I need a chip because I look at this game and I see that we still gave up 217 yards rushing. If you win it all, I don't care what your numbers are because you found a way to win the chip. But if you don't, then I have to look at it in terms of what it is, and that's numbers. Even if we go to an AFC championship game and we lose it, are you telling me we get there, we lost it, and now does that give you another 8 years of not winning one? No. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Now, respectfully to James Harrison, man, he's one of my favorite Steelers of all time, one of my favorite football players of all time, and he's a fantastic podcaster and all that different stuff. I think he has a really good way with words as well. I just think he's taking this take way too far because if we're going by the logic here, right, if you don't win a Super Bowl with a head coach, you got to fire him. And it's like, no, like there are certain things where like a team has certain expectations heading into the year, and they have to meet a certain bar for it to kind of meet expectations. And I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they make the playoffs this year, and especially if they win a playoff game this year, there's just no way in hell that Mike Tomlin is going to get fired. In fact, I don't see really any scenario where Mike Tomlin gets fired at this point in time. But like if Mike Tomlin gets this team to win a playoff game this year, or maybe multiple playoff games this year, absolutely, he should be back with this team in 2026. All right, I don't think we're at the point here where you have to be the lone team standing at the end of the season in order to save your job. I don't think it's even close to that point at this point in time. And it's like, really, James, if we make it to the AFC Championship game, we win multiple playoff games in order to get there, which is what it would take to get to an AFC Championship game this year. You're firing Mike Tomlin if we lose that game? Like, are we actually serious with that take? I think that takes it a little bit too far. I don't agree with it, and I do think that if this team makes the playoffs, Mike Tomlin should for sure be back as this team's head coach in 2026. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. How far does Pittsburgh have to go in the postseason this year for Mike Tomlin to be safe, at least in your opinion? Type those. Let me know down there in the comment section. Is it the wild card round? Is it to win a playoff game and get to the divisional round? Does he have to make the AFC Championship game? Does he have to make a Super Bowl? Does he have to win the Super Bowl like James Harrison says? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Harry's. And while I tell you about our sponsor today, let me know how far the Steelers have to go this year for you to want to keep Mike Tomlin at head coach. All right, now before we get to the rest of today's show, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Harry's. And I don't have to tell you guys that maneuvering the men's razor space nowadays absolutely sucks. The quality products are always super expensive in today's economy, and refills are always ridiculously expensive as well. And then when you try and save a little bit of money, you get stuck with dull razors that irritate your skin and even cut your skin at times. That's exactly why I switched to Harry's Plus, and I haven't looked back since. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and a weighted metal handle, which is Harry's heaviest handle ever for added control and comfort. But I think the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, which means no outsourcing and no middlemen. And because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep costs low and pass the savings on to you. And even after all this innovation that they've put into Harry's Plus, Harry's still costs less than Gillette Fusion. And to put a bow on it all, if you don't love your shave with Harry's Plus, Harry's is going to make it right with you, no questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving them a shot. And just to show you guys that I love and actually use Harry's Plus, I brought my Harry's Plus razor with me here today. I use their whole line of shaving products as well. I love their post-shave balm. I also really like their shaving gel. It smells terrific, and it's really affordable. And the reason why I started using Harry's all the way back in college is because obviously being a broke college kid, I didn't have any money. But once I switched to Harry's, you got the German-engineered craftsmanship of their blades, which is fantastic. You can it doesn't irritate your skin as much, and it's absolutely fantastic stuff. But you don't have to break the bank to get that barbershop quality shave. So for a limited time only, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now, some injury updates here from Mike Tomlin at the podium today in Southside Pittsburgh. DK Metcalf dealt with some stomach issues in Baltimore after the game on Sunday, but he's expected to play on Monday versus the Miami Dolphins. And then Kyle Duggar, who missed last week's game against the Ravens with a hand injury, is also expected to be back in the lineup this week against Miami. Now, in terms of the DK Metcalf thing here, it was definitely a little bit weird because, he obviously plays the entire game and all this different stuff, but then he had to stay in Baltimore on Sunday overnight in a hospital to get looked at because he was having some real big discomfort with his stomach, and apparently everything's okay. He's in Pittsburgh now, and he's recovering from that and whatever it was. And Mike Tomlin did say today that he is expected to play on Monday night. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to DK. Hopefully, everything's going to be okay with him there. Obviously, whenever your star wide receiver that just put up over 140 yards through the air has to spend the night in the hospital there before coming back to Pittsburgh, that's not ideal. But the good news is he is expected back in in the lineup here, according to Ian Rappaport and Mike Tomlin. Then moving on here to the questionables for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this week's matchup versus the Miami Dolphins. And, there's multiple players still in concussion protocol. All those guys will be questionable. That includes Darnell Washington, Malik Harrison, and Andrews Pete. Obviously, I think we really, really hope that all three of those guys can play because Darnell's a big body. He's going to be, if he's out there on Monday, I guarantee you there's not going to be a single Miami Dolphin that wants to tackle that guy. Then Malik Harrison, the run defense portion of the defense and the defensive effort in this game going up against Devon Achane, it's going to be huge. I think Harrison can play a big part on defense this week. And then Andrews Pete, obviously, I think is an upgrade over Dylan Cook, who had to play the second half of yesterday's game or 2 days ago against the Baltimore Ravens. But Calvin Anderson, one of the options at offensive tackle, unfortunately, he has suffered a knee injury and he is out this week. Now, he suffered it last week, but he will be out, so he will not be an option. And because Broderick Jones is already out with his neck injury, that means that if Andrews Pete can't clear concussion protocol this week, that it's going to be Dylan Cook who's going to be getting the start at left tackle if Pete can't give it a go. That Cook held up decently there in the second half when he was asked to come in and play for that final stretch. He didn't give up any pressures or anything like that. He did just fine at left tackle, but a full game against Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson might change the tune a little bit there. So hopefully Andrews Pete is going to be able to go so you can have as many hands on deck as possible on the offensive line. But then we also got an answer today from head coach Mike Tomlin as to why second-year wide receiver out of Michigan, Roman Wilson, was benched and was not given a helmet and was a healthy and active for Sunday's game versus the Baltimore Ravens. And the answer is just that Scotty Miller has the capability, apparently, to be a backup punt returner in the situation where Calvin Austin III would potentially get injured. And apparently they don't trust Roman Wilson to play that role enough, but I still think that this isn't an answer that fits the bill for me, guys. I would still give Roman that helmet over Scotty Miller because I do think Roman showed some good things and showed some growth as the season went on. He's still, to this day, one of the most efficient receivers that the Steelers have on the team just by the numbers. And, he was stacking corners on go balls multiple times in the weeks before he got benched here. And, I would rather see him get a roster spot than a guy like Scotty Miller. Are we really saying there's nobody else other than Calvin Austin III and Scotty Miller that can return punts in the event that Calvin gets injured? Give me a break, man. Do we really need Scotty Miller to be a backup punt returner that bad where we're going to bench a somewhat promising, former third-round pick that we drafted last year and completely ruin his confidence? I just disagree with this decision wholeheartedly. And I'm sure Scotty, is a great backup punt returner, but I would rather see Roman Wilson get that helmet on game days. But, I think the likely reality at this point is that Aaron Rodgers and, this Steelers coaching staff just doesn't feel like they can trust Roman Wilson as a starting level wide receiver. And what I mean by that is that there are certain, especially in this offense where there's a lot of, option routes and the wide receivers have a lot of freedom to run routes in a certain way based on the coverage that they get. I don't think Roman Wilson was running those routes correctly all the time. He was not running what I like to call QB-friendly routes at times where, you run your route at a certain angle to make it easier for the quarterback to hit you in stride. For example, if you're running a dig route and, you're kind of tailing that thing off, it's going to make it easier for the cornerback to undercut it and intercept it. Whereas if you kind of go on an inward angle, it makes it easier for the quarterback to hit you, and it doesn't give that cornerback an opportunity to come poach it. Those little details are the things I think sometimes fans miss and they don't really understand. But those are some of the things that Roman Wilson is still very much developing in his game, and that's exactly why they go out and get an Adam Thielen who knows those details and knows exactly how to run each and every route that this offense is going to ask him to run, whereas Roman is still learning those little intricacies and those nuances of the position at this point, even though, he did show, I think quite a bit of promise here in Pittsburgh. I hope that he is not done here in Pittsburgh. I hope he still has a future with his football team because, he does have some talent here, and I'm hoping that he can develop in the years to come. But I would say until, there's a potential injury in this wide receiver room, I don't expect Roman Wilson to get a helmet for the rest of this season. So predict it for me down there in the comments. comment section. Will Roman Wilson be a Steeler next season, or will they let him go in some capacity this upcoming offseason? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. My answer to this question, guys, is I hope so. I hope the Steelers aren't completely done with Roman Wilson, because I still think that there is some potential there for this to be a contributor on offense down the stretch and in future years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope they're not done with him, but after not giving him a helmet, it's hard to feel like there's a future for Roman Wilson here in Pittsburgh. Now, before I say goodbye for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, I think the Cleveland Browns are about to make a huge mistake, guys. It was reported last weekend that the Cleveland Browns are likely to give Deshaun Watson a chance to be their starting quarterback in 2026. Now, it appears likely that Cleveland is not just going to hand Deshaun Watson the job. He's been arguably the worst starting quarterback in the league the 2 seasons prior to this one, where, of course, he's missed the entire year after tearing his Achilles not once, but twice last year. It's just ridiculous report here from Ian Rappaport saying the Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson is not expected to be a starter this season for Cleveland, but there's a good chance he's on the roster next season with an opportunity to be the starter. So I think we are very rapidly approaching a Shedeur Sanders versus Deshaun Watson quarterback battle in Cleveland next year. And for me, guys, that's the best case scenario as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, because I think Deshaun Watson is absolutely terrible. And I think Shedeur Sanders, even though he's done some decent things, over the last few weeks, he had a pretty good game against a terrible Titans defense last week. But the more that Cleveland feels like Shedeur is a viable starting option for them in future years, that's the good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fans, because that would just be one other team that won't be taking a quarterback in round 1 of the 2026 NFL draft. And then, in terms of the long-term prospects of Shedeur or Deshaun wreaking havoc in this division, I don't think either one of them, even has the upside to be a good starting quarterback in this league. Like, I think Shedeur's upside is like as a bottom half of the league starter. So even if he hits that upside, I don't really view him in Cleveland as a threat. And, if they're going to be passing on drafting a quarterback early in the NFL draft next year, obviously that could provide some more opportunities for Pittsburgh to trade up and get a guy of their choosing in Pittsburgh next year. In next spring. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comment section. The Browns will win the AFC North title within the next 5 years. Do the Browns win a division title in the next half decade? Type T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. If history is to be believed with the Cleveland Browns, I'd be typing my F down there in the comments section. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of News and Rumors for your Pittsburgh Steelers here on Steelers Talk, here on a Tuesday, a Tomlin Tuesday. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, first segment in the books, Ponzi. We got one more to go, which is our in-depth preview for Week 15 versus the Dolphins. Monday Night Football this week, Color Rush. I'm guessing we're probably going to see the gold end zones in this one as well. If we don't see them this week, I'm guessing we'll see them Week 18 against the Baltimore Ravens. But, I think that this game with the Color Rush, with it being at night, I think the gold end zones would look really, really good if the Steelers bring those out here this week. But, we'll get into that here in just a second. If you guys have something that you want to discuss on the show, if you have something that you want me and Ponzi to talk about, feel free to super chat any dollar amount. We'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that you guys have. We do have some super chats to get to here, though. Bernard says, Stephen A. is not a real Steelers fan. I mean, I'm not really in the business of, determining who's a real Steelers fan and who's not. I think there's plenty of room on the bus here for everybody that wants to be a Steelers fan. But, I mean, let's face it, he's not somebody that's necessarily, looking into the team every single day like we are here on Steelers Talk. But then we got Rez with a 129 SEK super chat. It's giving us the $100 red stripe there. What? This is like $18? $13. All right, so appreciate you, Rez. Says if you want a good laugh, watch Ravens rundown and see Trader Joey cry over Sunday's game. Great win, but I still think Tomlin needs to go. Too many issues that leads to mediocrity at best. And, I think that is more than fair of a take to have. I mean, like, if the standard is the standard here in Pittsburgh, and the standard is to be the standard of the league, all right, to set the standard for the rest of the league and for the rest of the football world, we're not meeting that standard. We haven't met that standard for a very long time. And I think Mike Tomlin is a good head coach. All right, I think there's a lot of teams that would like to have Mike Tomlin as a head coach and have that stability and to always get to at least 9 wins every single year, and to have that kind of, dynamic in your building. I do believe he's a really great leader. I think his players play extremely hard for him. They never give up on him. They fight for him every single week. But, there's certain things, hiring bad coordinators, Terrell Austin, Matt Canada, Keith Butler, a lot of these guys that have just not worked out here in Pittsburgh, and he's had multiple chances to get the right guys. And honestly, Ponzi, his best coaching duo was his first one, where he kept Dick LeBeau from the Bill Cowher era, and then he brought in Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is the best OC that he's ever had. It was his first OC hire. And when you had those 2 great defensive coordinators, all right, and you paired that with Tomlin's leadership, okay, or he can run an organization. There's no question about that. Mike Tomlin knows how to run an organization and keep a team invested in each other and in the effort collectively throughout the course of an entire season. There's a reason why he's never had a losing season. That's the reason. But there's also a reason why we haven't won a playoff game in 8 years, and that reason is because Tomlin's getting in the way of properly building this roster. He's getting in the way of picking the right coaches to run the right schemes. He's getting in the way of getting the right quarterback here in Pittsburgh. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback that's going to get us a playoff win this year, but, Mike Tomlin has been a big reason why this team has not gotten to that next step, okay? And that's just a reality of the situation. So I don't blame any Steelers fan for being frustrated with Mike Tomlin, all right? Personally, I love Mike, and, I think he's a Steelers legend for life. I think if you win a Super Bowl in this city, you deserve to be, held in that regard. But at the same time, I understand why fans are frustrated. I'm frustrated with certain things with Mike Tomlin, and I'm not going to turn a blind eye to some of the things that he's doing that is, frankly, holding this organization back. So I think if they win a playoff game this year, it doesn't make sense to fire him or trade him or anything like that. But and if they make the play, it's hard to trade away your head coach after you win a division championship. And I think the Steelers are in a great spot right now to win the division. I just don't think it makes sense to trade your, almost 20-year, tenured head coach after he wins a division championship, right? I think it's going to have to take him really tanking in a season, less than, having a losing season, missing the playoffs. I think it's going to take that kind of year in order for this team to move on from Mike Tomlin in the future. So I think Tomlin will be back next year. I hate to break it to you, Rez, but I think he'll be back next year. And I think the Steelers will make the playoffs this year with him at head coach. So, all right, let's get into it. Our second segment here, our final segment of the day, our Week 15 preview for Monday Night Football between the Steelers and the Dolphins is coming at you right now. This week, the Miami Dolphins will travel to frigid Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania here for Monday Night Football in Week 15. And today on Steelers Talk, we've got our preview here for this Week 15 Monday Night Football matchup in a game that the Steelers could potentially really, put distance between them and the Baltimore Ravens here in Week 15, which is 3 games left to go. Now, before we get into the rest of today's show and before we get into this week's preview, help us win our sub battle this week. We are doing a new subscriber battle with our Dolphins channel here at Chat Sports, Dolphins Today, which currently sits at 37 new subscribers for the week. We have gotten a good 33 new subscribers. That's a good number, but we're just 4 behind Dolphins Today. And like I usually like to do with these other hosts that we got here at Chat Sports, I'm betting my usual, a steak dinner with our Dolphins host here, Nick Roloff, and the winner of this sub battle is going to owe the other host a steak dinner. You guys have really pulled through for me this year. I haven't owed a single steak to a single host all season long. I don't want to start now. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you are a new viewer, because the real ones that have already clicked that subscribe button can't help us out here, guys. We got to get some new blood in here. We got to get those new subscribers. Again, we're just 4 behind Dolphins today. So if you've been watching our channel for a while, if you like our content, you want to help us beat the Dolphins this week, and you want to get me a free steak dinner from our Dolphins host, Nick Roloff, click that subscribe button. And now let's get into the preview, man. It's very interesting, very fun matchup here, because the Miami Dolphins have won 4 straight games. All right, they were sitting at 2-7. Now they're at 6-7 with a chance to 6-7. Ponzi, exactly. They've got a chance to get back to 500. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, are coming off a big win in Baltimore last week, trying to get up to 8-6. And if you can get to 8-6 here and get this win, you're really sitting pretty in terms of your chances of securing your spot in the NFL playoffs this year as the AFC North division champion. In this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be wearing their color rush uniforms, and man, those things look good, man. I remember last year when we wore these things against the New York Football Giants, and that was a great day. It was a night game in Pittsburgh. Those same vibes are going to be there on a really cold night in Pittsburgh on Monday night. So really looking forward to those color rush uniforms on Monday. And something else to keep an eye on here is that Mike Tomlin, you can say whatever you want about Mike, but when you give him extra time to prepare, the Steelers usually win the football game. Not only does he have an excellent record coming off of a bye, but he is also top 3 all-time in NFL history in win percentage on Monday Night Football with a 21-3 record on Monday night. So, a lot of things pointing in the right direction there. But the Steelers are 0-4 in night games this season, okay? They have not won a game at night this year. And, that has been something, I don't think that really matters all that much necessarily. I don't think it's like a mental thing or anything. Just something to keep tabs on here, that the Steelers have not been a particularly good primetime team so far this year. But now you shift your focus to the Miami Dolphins, and they are winners of their last 4 games. But that 4-game stretch was a little bit of a cupcake kind of stretch for their season. The lone playoff team that they won during that stretch was a division rival in the Buffalo Bills. But before that, they only had 2 wins against the Jets. They swept the Jets. Congratulations, Miami. And then you get the Falcons in Week 8 on the road, where they kind of spanked that ass. But, a 4-win streak and, a full month of winning football is 4 straight wins. And that's not easy to do in the National Football League. But that's exactly what Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins have done. And now they're feeling really good about themselves, and they even think that their chances to make the playoffs are still alive. If the Steelers can beat them in this game, their playoff chances are all but dead. And then also another thing to keep in mind about this game is that it's expected to be really cold in Pittsburgh on Monday, and Miami has a reputation as a soft team when playing in cold weather. I mean, whenever they have to play, when they've had to go to Lambeau and play in really cold conditions, Arrowhead in the playoffs, they have completely crumbled in those football games. I mean, just look at Mike McDaniel, man, all bundled up with the multiple layers and all that stuff. It's going to be cold out there, but, this is a team that certainly has a reputation as a team that does not play its best football in cold weather. And I definitely think that, the weather conditions in Pittsburgh on Monday are going to favor the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no question about that. It's going to be windy. It's going to be in the teens, and that's pre-wind chill. So who knows how low it's going to get when the wind kicks in there. So certainly expect it to be a cold winter evening there in Pittsburgh on Monday night, and that should give the Steelers a potential edge in this football game. But now we talk about the Miami Dolphins as a football team here, and we talk about their coaching and scheme breakdown. Mike McDaniel obviously is their head coach. He is on the hot seat right now, and our Dolphins host Nick Roloff says that this is the most important game of his coaching career, because if the Dolphins lose, he might be fired at the end of the season. But he runs a new school Shanahan offense, one of the best and brightest offensive play callers in the league, in my opinion, still. And then Anthony Weaver is one of the up-and-coming defensive minds in the National Football League as well. He runs a Mike McDonald big nickel system that he's taking over from the Baltimore Ravens when he was working under then defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, current head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Now you take a look here at Miami's offensive ranks and where they kind of stack up with the rest of the league. And, the thing that really jumps out at you there is the EPA per rush. Their run game has been the number 1 run game game in the league over the last month. It's been a big reason why they've won those 4 straight games. They're currently ranking 3rd overall for the season in EPA per rush. Now, they do turn the ball over, more than they probably would like, 18 turnovers on the year, and, they don't score a ton of points. The Steelers actually score more points per game than the Dolphins do, so it's not like an offense that you're super scared of, but that run game is definitely something to keep note of, especially with the struggles that the Steelers have had stopping the run as of late. But you take a look at their roster on offense. Tua Tagovailoa is their starting quarterback, and their offensive line has started to gel a bit more here over the last month. Patrick Paul, second-year player that's really come into his own at left tackle this year. Jonas Savanaia has been one of the worst left guards in football this year, especially in pass protection. Cam Hayward has to take advantage of that matchup this week. Aaron Brewer has been one of the best centers in the league. He might be an all-pro this year. He's been that good for Miami. Cole Strange is their starting right guard with Austin Jackson at right tackle. At the weapons positions, they do rotate a lot of players in and out, but the main guys that you see are Jalen Waddle and Malik Washington at wide receiver. A lot of speed at that wide receiver position, even with Tyreek Hill out for the year. Then Devon Achane brings even more speed. I mean, I compare his skill set to a lesser version of Jahmyr Gibbs, where he really is explosive, man. Like, he's got it all. He's a true star back in this league, and he has proven that over the last month. And Darren Waller is their main tight end right now with Alec Ingold as a fullback. They like to play a lot of 22 personnel, which means with an extra running back, and they like to use Ingold as a true fullback in this system. But then on defense, you take a look at their defensive side of the ball, and it's not like their defense has been great this season either. I think that they've been pretty good at taking the football away, and they've been really good in the red zone. They're a top 5 red zone defense in the league, but they give up a lot of yardage. They give, they're not very efficient as a defense in general. They don't really have a specialty in terms of stopping the run versus the pass, all those different things. So the Steelers offense should have opportunities to have success against this Miami Dolphins defense, even though as of late this unit has been playing a lot better under Anthony Weaver. You take a look at the defensive roster that the Steelers will have to deal with on Monday. Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson are their defensive ends. They've been playing pretty good football as of late. And then Zach Seiler and Kenneth Grant will be the interior defensive linemen. But they have a very healthy rotation inside. They got Benito Jones. They've got Jordan Phillips, who's another rookie who has played really well for them this year. So they got a good, healthy rotation along the defensive line that you'll see on Monday night. Then the off-ball linebacker position, the guys that you'll see are Terrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks. Both these guys pretty decent players. Definitely no complaints there in terms of, clear liabilities. Both these guys know what they're doing. They're veteran players, and they're very solid. And then in the secondary, Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones have certainly stabilized that cornerback position. It was a big problem for them early in the season. Those two have played better as of late, though. Our old friend Minkah Fitzpatrick will be playing nickel for this Dolphins defense. He's been playing very well in that role for them this year, and he kind of plays that Kyle Hamilton kind of all over the place chess piece kind of role for Miami, and he's played very well there this season. And then their safety duo isn't anything special. Ashton Davis and Melifonwu are not the best players in the world, but they're not true liabilities either. So still to come here on the Steelers Talk Preview here in Week 15, keys to victory versus the Miami Dolphins. 8 things that the Steelers need to do this week to take down the Dolphins and improve to 8-6. Then I got my scouting report on Tua Tagovailoa, what the Steelers defense needs to do to force some mistakes out of Tua on Monday night. And then I'll get into my score prediction here for Week 15. Do the Steelers win this game? I'll let you guys know my prediction at the end, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview, I want to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks, and it is the holiday season right now, guys. And in my opinion, this is the best time of the year for watching sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes in both collegiate and professional football, and it's all happening at once. And while all that action is going on, there is one place where it feels good to be right, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is that how you play is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling particularly strong about a certain lineup and you want a bigger payout for getting it right, I go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is if you know ball. So for Monday night's game here, I'm going to take the more on Devon Achane rush yards. I'm going to take the more on rushing yards for Jaylen Warren as well. And I'll take the less on passing yards for Tua Tagovailoa. So you guys can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. First key to victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and really the biggest one, in my opinion, is stop the Dolphins' run game, all right? The last 2 weeks, the Steelers obviously have not been able to stop the run. And now you're going up against the hottest rushing offense in the National Football League this week. And you got to bounce back, plain and simply. If you don't, and you allow this offense to run all over you the way that you've allowed Baltimore and Buffalo's run games to run all over you, it could be a long day at the office. And, we could be seeing some Fire Mike Tomlin chants back in Acrisure Stadium in the fourth quarter of this ball game. So I think the two big injuries to watch this week in this regard are Devon Achane, the running back for the Miami Dolphins, and Derrick Harmon, the defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Devon had to leave the game against the Jets last week with a rib injury. Now, according to head coach Mike McDaniel, he could have came back in the game, and they were just kind of sitting him for the rest of the game in abundance of caution. But certainly sounds like Achane is going to be able to play with this injury on Monday. Now, how much punishment is he going to be able to take? I guarantee you that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defensive coaching staff is going to be, putting an emphasis on hitting this guy, in the midsection a little bit and making him uncomfortable. But listen, man, Achane is an extremely dynamic back. He's one of the fastest guys in the entire National Football League. And the Steelers got to be careful here, because you take a look at what Miami's done the last 4 weeks. Now, it's not like most of these teams are particularly dynamic in any stretch. Buffalo has struggled to stop the run this year. The Commanders' defense might be the worst in the league right now. New Orleans' defense is far from special. And then the Jets, they got rid of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. That defense stinks. So, it's been impressive what they've been able to do. At least 164 yards in 4 straight games is nothing to sneeze at. But at the end of the day here, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to do a better job than what they've been doing the last 2 weeks in particular. You went from 99 yards given up against the Bears, a really good running team, by the way. All right, the Bears can really run the ball. You had Derrick Harmon on the field for that Week 12 game. To now, you're giving up, over 217 yards at least per game over the last 2, and the Steelers got to get that under control and fast, okay? Because if you don't, like I said, I think that Miami is going to have a really good chance of winning this ball game. And you guys can see the difference for the Steelers' rushing defense when they have Derrick Harmon versus when they don't have him this year. And it's not like it's a super tiny sample size without Harmon. You've got like a month of football games, 4 games without Derrick Harmon, the first 2 games of the year, and then these last 2 games, and you're giving up almost 6 yards a carry. You're giving up almost 200 yards per game. You've given up over 200 the last 2 games, and then, you inject Derrick Harmon. If he's able to play this week, if you listen to the numbers in the 9 games that he has played this year, the Steelers would be giving up less than 100 yards in this ball game. If that happens, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers come away victorious. And, a big way that you got to do that is you got to match the size that the Miami Dolphins are going to present to you, because, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers really led the charge in the NFL this year in terms of jumbo personnel packages, which means 6 offensive linemen on the field at one time. But, maybe the team that has taken that idea and ran with it and has had the most success with it this year has been the Miami Dolphins. Over the last several weeks, I think starting with the Buffalo Bills game, they have been the most heavy jumbo personnel team in the entire league from that point forward. And they haven't lost a game since they started going to that jumbo personnel look. So the Steelers are going to have to match that size, and they're going to have to do a good job blocking up front, getting some push, holding that line of scrimmage. The linebackers need to be in the right place, and then they've got to tackle. So expect to see the Pittsburgh Steelers in a lot of base personnel. Expect to see a lot of 5-man fronts, all this different stuff that we see from the Steelers in their base looks. Brandon Echols, their slot corner, probably won't play as big of a factor in this ball game, just because he's going to be off the field for so much in this game because of how much jumbo Miami is going to be in. But then another thing that this defense defense can't afford to do is get fooled by the excellent play calling and play design of head coach Mike McDaniel, who is so good at kind of scheme effing you, so to speak, where he's putting a bunch of different miscellaneous pieces out there in crazy formations and then kind of formations you to death. He's one of the best in the league at doing that. And, if you're not careful, he's going to run circles around you as a defensive coaching staff. So Teryl Austin, Mike Tomlin need to bring their A game on Monday night because, even though I do think that Miami has a little bit of a limited quarterback situation in Tua Tagovailoa, their head coach is one of the best in the league in setting up opportunities for his players and putting his guys in positions to succeed. So the Steelers defensive coaching staff needs to do the same. But as I mentioned with Tua Tagovailoa, he is the weakness of this Miami Dolphins offense, and you got to make him beat you from the pocket. And we talk about how this Dolphins team has a reputation for not playing well in cold weather. Well, Tua has kind of been, the main engine of that, where he's never played well in cold weather. Obviously, he's from Hawaii, and he's just not very comfortable playing in the cold at all. And he's played his worst football of his career in these kinds of conditions. And, even in, comfortable conditions this year, he hasn't played particularly great. He doesn't have great arm strength. He's one of the better anticipatory throwers in the game. His pre-snap processing is about as good as any guy in the league. He is relatively accurate, and he's awesome running those RPOs. He's going to want to get the ball out extremely fast in this game. He's second in the league in average time to throw, but he doesn't have a lot of size or arm strength, so if the wind is going on Monday, that's going to be an issue for Tua. He doesn't have really any off-schedule playmaking ability, so if you take away that first read for Tua, you're going to be able to get him on the ground, and he's just a complete statue in the pocket. So hopefully that's going to allow the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush to get after this guy and get a lot of sacks, force a lot of turnovers. And as you guys can see here with Tua Tagovailoa's numbers this year, he's really fast getting the ball out, but he's also dead last in turnover-worthy play percentage there. He's got the highest turnover-worthy play percentage in the league at 5.4%, and he's going up against a Steelers team here and a defense that turns over the ball, more than just about anybody else in football. So he doesn't throw the ball down the field. He's not the most efficient guy in the world whatsoever. He's not the most accurate quarterback in the league either. This is a quarterback that has really struggled this year, and there's conversations in Miami about replacing him next year. He's played so poorly. So hopefully the Steelers defense can take advantage of that, and the key to victory on defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to make Tua Tagovailoa the main focus for the Miami Dolphins offense in this one. Then, the way that you do that is Teryl Austin comes out with a very post-snap rotation-heavy game plan. All right, and we've seen this from Teryl Austin this year, where he's willing to get into this post-snap rotation type of world, and that's exactly the type of defense you got to play against Tua, because he's so good pre-snap, where if you just go out there in static coverages and he knows exactly what you're going to run before he snaps the ball, he's going to be able to throw that ball with anticipation, get it to his receivers. But if the Steelers can mix things up and they can shift post-snap, Tua has shown throughout his career and a lot this year that, those predetermined reads where he thinks he knows where there's going to be a guy open, he throws it anyway despite a post-snap rotation. It ends up being an interception. So that's going to be where the turnover opportunities for the Steelers pop up, is those post-snap rotated looks, and I think we're going to see quite a few of those from the Steelers in this game, particularly non-traditional Tampa looks from single high formations. Then when it comes to on the offensive side of the ball, you got to make them feel it, all right? And, you got to make them feel it in the run game, okay? We want the run game to get going this week. The last 2 weeks with Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell, the run game has not been as successful, and we want to see that, that dynamic return for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because when this team is playing their best ball, it's when their defense is playing well and when their run game is able to take some time off the clock. And, we've seen Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell be a really good dynamic wide running back duo for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. So getting back to getting these guys to over 100 rush yards in a game would be fantastic, especially in a colder environment there in Pittsburgh. If the Steelers can run for more rush yards than Miami in this game, they will be the victors for this football game. But then, also because it's so cold outside, you might want a little bit more of a bruising running back out there, which informs me that Caleb Johnson could see a heavier workload this week. Obviously, he's the biggest out of the top 3 backs on this Steelers roster, and he was kind of known for playing in these cold weather games at Iowa in college. He played in these kinds of conditions in college. So I think that they drafted Caleb Johnson for games like this, and it would not surprise me at all if we see Caleb's biggest workload of the season come in this football game here, where he could really make a big impact. So keep your eye on Caleb Johnson. But some other big bodies that the Dolphins players probably do not want to tackle are DK Metcalf, who obviously is a big body that can really get going. We saw it last week against the Baltimore Ravens in this kind of game where, these hits, everybody's going to feel every single hit that they take. DK out there running full speed. You better believe these Dolphins defenders do not want to see DK Metcalf with a head of steam. Same thing goes for Darnell Washington. I mean, no DB or linebacker wants to tackle Darnell Washington any week, but especially in a game where it's going to be below 20 degrees. I mean, any hit you take from Darnell Washington is definitely going to hurt. So hopefully Darnell is able to clear concussion protocol by the end of the week and play in this one, and hopefully DK gets his stomach issues figured out before Monday night, and hopefully those two can play big impacts, because I think they will be heavily featured in this offensive game plan this week. Then I think another big thing here is going to be to protect the football if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense this week. Aaron Rodgers did a good job of this last week. And obviously, it came close. You had that tip pass that Rodgers was able to, quote-unquote, catch and avoid the interception. That would have been a huge play there in the fourth quarter against the Ravens. But at the end of the day, you won the turnover battle against Baltimore, and you ended up winning the ball game. So hopefully you can protect that football, get that run game going, make the Miami Dolphins defense feel the presence of the physicality of the Steelers offense, and that's certainly the key to victory on offense for me. And then if it's close, you got to make the play late, just like every single week, guys. We talked about it last week. It's usually a key to victory for me in games that I expect to be somewhat close, all right? And I think this week is one of those weeks just because of the run game that Miami has, because I'm not sure if Derrick Harmon's going to play, because, it is cold outside, so I do expect this to be a very run-centric football game. But there's going to be a play that needs to be made in the fourth quarter. Can the Steelers make it? And, in last game, it was getting a couple defensive stops against the Baltimore Ravens. They were able to make those plays to win. Got to do the same thing in this one if you want to get to 8-6. So you take a look here at the points per game trends between these two teams, and it would predict a very slight victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is about as close as you can possibly get in terms of cross-referencing the points per games of the offenses and defenses on both sidelines. So, the trends would predict, a very close ball game here. Could go either way. But for me, guys, I am going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers to win, just with Mike Tomlin's career record on Monday Night Football, having this extra time to prepare for this opponent. The fact that you do have some good running backs here in Pittsburgh, and I think the run game returns to form this week. I hope Derrick Harmon's going to be able to play in this one, but I'm just hopeful here, guys, because I think that this Steelers team has got some momentum here after that big-time win against the Baltimore Ravens, and I just really hope the Steelers can get at least one primetime win on their schedule here before the season ends. So it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the score of Steelers versus Dolphins here for Monday Night Football. I'm taking the Steelers to win 27-21. Let me know your take down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports and this week's Steelers Talk preview. We do previews like this every single week for every single Steelers game. So if you like this in-depth, insightful type of preview coverage for every single Steelers game, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, Ponzi, so we will stay live until we can't. Did we get some news here?
Well, it's bad news, but... So, I know we're in a battle against Dolphins today for the sub-battle, but I do want to say... Oh, my mic's over here. Sorry about that. We got a false thumbnail flag from YouTube, from the AI process. And I just want to, give a shout out to Steelers because, I know you guys, we want to beat the Dolphins, we want to beat Rolly, but get some help here because this is just unacceptable from YouTube. Get some push on this tweet here that I just sent in the Steelers chat. Just because, it's one of those things where it's an AI review process and they're flagging it for nudity. And I just want to say that, give some love to Dolphins because this is just unacceptable.
What?
Yeah.
This is on our channel?
On our Dolphins Today.
That is a joke. So, yeah. Go do that right now. But do we have a link for that? Did you just put it in there?
In the chat.
That's ridiculous, man. For nudity?
Yeah, and it's obviously not. It's just about Isaiah Likely. So, like, I feel like this is just something that, Yinzer Nation, if you could help us out here.
Yeah, help
us at Chat Sports.
Help out our Dolphins channel, man. Go to that link and help us out there. Appreciate you. Let's see. Cassie sent me a message. Let's see what it is. All right. Eric, I'm sending them out this week. All right, just so you know. I'm sending them out this week.
We do have one super chat.
All right, cool. So we have a super chat here, and we're going to get out of here relatively soon here. Appreciate all 370 of you guys still watching live. And if you got questions, if you got comments, if you want to keep the show going, feel free to super chat. Mr. Sloth with a 2 says, if Miami let Mike McDaniels go, we hire him as an OC, fire Arthur Smith. Listen, man, I would love Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator. I honestly think he's a perfect offensive coordinator, Ponzi. But here's two things. Number one, don't think he gets fired. I think that I think they're going to keep him actually because I think they're stuck with that Tua contract for likely at least one more season, and I just don't see anybody in the league getting more out of Tua than Mike McDaniel already does. So I think they're going to keep him. But if he is let go, then I think there's other teams that probably have the inline road to get him because the Steelers really don't have any connections to him. But he's a good friend of Dan Quinn of the Commanders. Like if Cliff Kingsbury gets a head coaching job, I think he probably goes to Washington. Of course, he's got a lot of ties to the Shanahan tree. Lots of teams have a connection to Shanahan. The Houston Texans. If Robert Saleh gets a job. Of course, the 49ers themselves. Like McDaniel would probably go to a bunch of different places before he comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would personally love it. I think McDaniel is a genius, okay? I think he's so good at setting his guys up for success. And he's, in my opinion, a top 5 play caller in the game. Now, I don't think he's necessarily... Now, I think McDaniel is kind of like the anti-Tomlin, okay? Yeah. Where even though they're both player coaches, they're different types of player coaches. I don't think McDaniel's necessarily like a locker room leader, somebody that people really rally behind, for example, like they do with Mike Tomlin. Tomlin is so good at running an organization, keeping every person in that locker room bought in to what he's trying to sell. He's been doing it for 18, 19 years, and everybody in that locker room still talks about how much they respect and love him as their head coach. Okay, with McDaniel though, things kind of tend to unravel quickly when there's drama. They don't squash it quickly, and it looks bad on him. His teams have a reputation of being soft in not only big games but in cold weather games. And I think he's like the perfect candidate to be like a long-term OC for a defensive head coach. I would love it if Mike Tomlin was able to get him here. I just don't think that there's really any path for him to come here. Unfortunately, I really think that like you were saying with the drama of not being able to squash it, like you can kind of see how Tyreek Hill, how that scenario kind of unraveled with the tension that he had last season going into this season, and that he was still on the team. Of course, he suffered that brutal injury, but I mean, even Tua has had a lot of press throwing people under the bus. It's just not really. It's a really lax environment that I don't know if he really fits the Steeler, not the Steeler way, but kind of. But listen, if you have Tomlin at head coach, he's the one setting the tone. That's fair. You don't need Mike McDaniel to be the rah-rah leadership guy if he comes here as the OC. You already have Tomlin for that. So why would that matter? I mean, I feel he would just bring his schemes, which are excellent. I just feel I don't know if he strikes me as a Tomlin guy. Yeah, I mean that's perfectly fair, and I don't even think McDaniel and Tomlin even really know each other, because Tomlin was a head coach in this league back in 2007 was when he was hired. McDaniel was not even in the league back then. There's no way these guys have had any sort of connection to each other. in the league, and he's got a bunch of connections to a bunch of other places. So as much as I would love it, Mr. Sloth, I don't think that this is necessarily a realistic option. I think the most likely scenario, whether Steelers fans like it or not, I actually think Terrell Austin will probably, not get renewed. I think he's in the final year of his contract right now. I think they get a new defensive coordinator next year and let him walk. But I think Arthur Smith will be back next year. I think Mike Tomlin will be back next year as well. And we'll see if that pairing works out in the long term. I mean,
still got plenty of season
left. And who knows what quarterback they're going to take? Who knows how that development is going to work out? Obviously, didn't work out with Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett, but hopefully Arthur Smith can find his guy.
For the Raiders this week.
Yeah, and apparently Art was really high on Tyler Shuck this year. Apparently Art was the guy that was trying to get the Steelers to draft Tyler Shuck.
Just like you.
Listen, man, I'm glad. Just imagine if we drafted Shuck, though, Ponzi, because you would have had to use your first-round pick on him.
Because he didn't have a second.
Because you didn't have a second, okay? So if you drafted Shuck where you drafted Harmon, that means you don't have Harmon. If you don't have Harmon, this would be the worst run defense in the league, period. So I would much rather have drafted Harmon for the short term at least, because in terms of this season, Harmon helps this team more than Tyler Shuck would have, because this was always going to be Aaron Rodgers' season. Yeah. Always. And if you're going to draft Tyler Shuck, who is already 25? He's almost 26, and you're going to sit him a whole year? Does that really make a lot of sense?
Well, do you think they would have brought in Rodgers in that sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, no, he was linked.
Because we know, Mike Tomlin said at the time of the draft, he knew that Rodgers was eventually going to sign. He knew it. So, it doesn't make sense if you have that information, Aaron Rodgers is coming. Why spend your first-round pick on a 25-year-old rookie quarterback that, wasn't without his faults coming out too, man? His numbers under pressure were not great at Louisville. It seems like it's working out in New Orleans right now.
He's 26.
Yeah, I think he was 25 at the time of the draft. He turned 26 this year. It wouldn't have made sense to draft Tyler Shuck unless you were going to start him from day one. And I don't think that was ever going to be the plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm glad he's balling out in New Orleans. I think that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy for Shuck, happy for the Saints. I think that he'll be their starter next year. And by the way, that helps the Steelers too, because that means that's another team not looking for a quarterback in next spring.
I think they hold the fourth pick?
Something like that. They're up there.
And I mean, I feel like, I don't think it would have worked out if they drafted him in the first round. Now, if they really wanted to draft him, they were going to have to trade up in the second or draft him in the third if he fell.
Yeah. No, maybe that was the plan. I don't know. They ended up taking Will Howard in the sixth, but I don't think that I don't think the Steelers should regret the guy that they picked at in the first round last year at all. I like the Derrick Harmon pick. And by the way, I'm not giving up on Caleb Johnson yet. I think Caleb Johnson might have his biggest game of the season on Monday, all right? Because we talked about it in the preview, Ponzi, cold weather game. Caleb Johnson has played in these environments before. You draft Caleb, you draft this guy, a big body running back, for these types of games, to run over people and wear teams out, all right? And as much as I love Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell for what they do, they're not necessarily guys that wear you out, all right? So Caleb is the type of guy that can do that. Because of that, I think on early downs we might see Caleb a little bit more. Might see Kenny Gainwell a little bit less in this game, and I think we might see more of a true three running back committee in this game, with Jaylen Warren being the guy that's mostly promoted and getting the most snaps. But I do think we see the highest workload of the season for Caleb Johnson.
I hope he has a breakout game
in this football game, and with playing against kind of a team that has a reputation for being soft. I mean, it's a great opportunity for a guy like Caleb Johnson to have his coming out party. And have a fantastic game against the Miami Dolphins. All right, we're going to wrap things up here on the Tomlin Tuesday live show here on Steelers Talk. We'll be back live again on Thursday. All right, so we'll go live either at 5 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. That's still TBD. But then, of course, we'll be live again on Monday night starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be going live for almost 2 hours before the game. On Monday night. It's going to be a big one. We're going to have extensive super chat giveaways, and we're going to have a lot of fun stuff for you guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And from me and Ponzi, we'll see you guys on Thursday. Until then, here we go, Steelers.